This episode of Keys to the Shop is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Whether it's espresso machines, manual brewing devices, or general coffee shop needs, they seek to pursue the most innovative coffee products, both domestic and abroad, to offer their customers. Find out more at prima-coffee.com. This is Keys to the Shop, Founder Friday edition, and today we're talking with Chelsey Walker-Watson of Slate Coffee Roasters in Seattle, Washington. Well, hi everybody, and welcome to Keys to the Shop, Founder Friday edition. This is the fifth in a series where we take the last Friday of the month and we feature inspiring coffee shop entrepreneurs. And today I'm honored to have the co-owner of Slate Coffee Roasters in Seattle, Chelsey Walker-Watson. Chelsey is also the second place finalist in the National U.S. Brewers Cup with a fantastic coffee from Yemen and a performance that was truly inspirational. So you're in for a treat today. And Slate actually this month is celebrating their 4-year anniversary of their brick and mortar store, Ballard. So congratulations to Slate. Well done. And, you know, I got to know these guys first by having them be a competitor. Their team came and competed at America's Best Coffee House, which was a team-based competition that I created along with Coffee Fest trade shows. And, they came in and they won the 2013 Western Regional. And they were just such a fun group of people to watch compete and work together. And their philosophy on hospitality and service, they're known for their approachable and unique take on hospitality and for also sourcing and roasting some amazing coffees. They are a family-owned and operated business, and they've just been a progressive force in the industry in the short number of years that they've been around. I feel like it seems like it's been longer. So like I said, today we're going to get to hear from co-owner Chelsey Walker-Watson, who runs the company along with her mother, Lisanne, and her brother, Keenan, who runs the roasting. Chelsey serves as a director of retail and wholesale operations. She began her career in coffee in 2003 with Pete's Coffee and Tea, and she worked in Seattle and Portland markets as a store manager and training manager before launching Slate with her family in 2012. And today we get to hear all about their journey from opening in an Airstream trailer, switching to the brick and mortar, and then recent expansion into taking over 2 existing businesses. And then, what's ahead for them. And also we get to hear all about their philosophy on hospitality, on hiring, on leadership. How do they do it? How do they make such a big impact on the industry? So this is a really valuable interview. I know you're going to have fun and get a lot out of it. So let's get right to it. Here now is my interview with Chelsey Walker-Watson of Slate Coffee Roasters. Chelsey Walker-Watson, the co-owner, co-founder of Slate Coffee Roasters in Seattle, Washington. Welcome to Keys to the Shop.
Thank you. I'm excited to be chatting with you.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure to have you on the show. Is really a great honor. And right off the bat, I want to say congratulations on your fantastic showing at the U.S. Brewers Cup, second place.
Thank you. I'm thrilled. It was a real team effort, and I'm proud of everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite presentations. We're going to touch on that a little bit later in the show today. But anybody who's familiar with the name of Slate, I think, knows that you guys are, I think, a progressive force in specialty coffee. Ever since the beginning, you have just been out there in the community, kind of shaking things up and doing things, I think, simply, but in such a dynamic way. And it's only been 4 years, but it feels like it's been longer. In fact, this is your 4-year anniversary this month.
It is, yeah. It's the 4-year anniversary of our Ballard shop, which was our first brick and mortar.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cool. So 4 years, a lot happens in 4 years. But pre-Slate, what led to starting this company? Why start a coffee shop? Were you in coffee before?
I was, and I think there are many kind of levels to answer that question. I was in coffee for quite some time. I started as a shift leader with Pete's Coffee and Tea in 2003.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And they were really good to me. I think I started out in coffee like many people do, just as a job that I enjoyed, not necessarily with career aspirations. But I had a wonderful experience for them and like quickly fell in love with tasting coffee and developing my knowledge and how many passionate people I was working with. So I kind of gave it a year and then another year and another year. And before I knew it, it was my career. And I was with Pete's for almost 9 years. I worked as a store manager for them. I opened a shop and then worked as a training manager as well. And at the time, I didn't necessarily have aspirations to open my own business, but I definitely approached my work with Pete's thinking about like how I could be most effective as a leader in the coffee industry, in like specifically in Seattle, right? Like in my community.
Yeah.
And I stepped away and took a little break. I traveled and was kind of thinking about my next step. And honestly, I was thinking that I would just step away from the coffee industry. I felt fulfilled in what I had learned with Pete's and thought perhaps I wanted a fresh start. And that was around 2011. And when I did that, my brother and my mother, while I was traveling, were talking about potentially starting their own business and exploring things that they both loved, and coffee came up. Like many families, we have kind of a strong history in terms of our daily ritual of drinking coffee together, right? So they started kind of tossing around the idea of starting a coffee company. Keenan, my brother, and Lisanne, my mom, took one roasting course together, and then Keenan especially was just hooked and all in.
Nice.
And then they came back to me and asked if I would kind of reconsider my total career move, and if I would join them in starting a specialty roaster and retailer.
Wow. So it's a family run, family owned, family run, and to this day, in fact, right?
Yeah.
And man, you hear a lot of people that go into business with family. Sometimes it's not so great, and sometimes, as it sounds in this case, it is very fruitful and very great.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience and something that people ask me about all the time. I think most people, when they think about starting a business with their spouse or starting a business with their siblings or parents, are kind of scared of the idea, right? Because of just general family dynamics. And I'll say that it's challenging, but also I think probably really rewarding in ways that just working with a business partner wouldn't necessarily be. I think we have to work to kind of separate our family dynamic and our personal relationships all the time from our work, but we also have this ability to kind of get to know like the strengths and skills of our loved ones in a way that we never would be able to unless we work together. So it's pretty rewarding in that way.
Man, that's awesome. That's so sweet. And it's so great that you guys are, get along and are in this together and there for each other, especially since your venture into coffee started in a Airstream trailer first. Yeah. That's kind of close quarters.
Yeah, it was. Although we have really different roles, so we're not necessarily sharing the close quarters every day. So I'd be happy to share more about the Airstream, but to tell you a little bit about what each of us do. So I, throughout my time with Slate, I've kind of gone from being a barista and manager to now in my career, we have 4 shops. So I oversee our shops, and then oversee kind of business operations as a whole with my partners, as well as our wholesale operations. Keenan is our green buyer and our roaster. And then our mom, Lisanne, helps with kind of general business operations, roasting production, and helps kind of support all aspects of the business.
Nice. So tell us about that Airstream trailer. I'm really interested to know your experience. At Gimme Coffee years ago, I worked at an Airstream trailer on Cornell's campus.
You did?
Yeah, briefly, and it was quite the experience. And so, how did that go for you guys?
The Airstream was a wild adventure and so fun, and challenging. It was really a novel and kind of cool idea. It just sounds great. And in so many ways, it was like thrilling and adventurous, but also presented all of these challenges that one would not necessarily anticipate. We have a 1967 Airstream Safari that is converted into a cafe. So it has an espresso machine on one side and then pour over on the other side. But when the good people at Airstream were designing these in the late 60s, they were not anticipating someone driving it around like the hilly, potholey streets of Seattle with like 80 gallons of water on it.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Yeah. So, getting operations ready every day and the effort that goes into setting it up and tearing everything down was pretty extreme and labor intensive. But once we got through all of that on a daily basis, it was so fun. I initially thought that people would just line up food truck style outside, but most people wanted to peek inside and were really curious as to what it looked like. So most of our guests would actually cram inside with the baristas and just stand with us and talk to us while we made coffee.
What?
Yeah. And so sometimes I had a few people tell me that it felt like a bar because people would stand there and have coffee and then pass coffee down. Like every guest would grab the cup and pass it down to the person waiting for it. And people would just sit and hang out. So it had a really warm kind of party-like atmosphere and it was great. I loved it. We still have it, and for my next retail location, it will most likely be, we don't actively operate the Airstream right now, but most likely it will be opening it back up again because it was a great time.
Man, that sounds amazing. And one of your values that, as you and I were corresponding before the show, is just bringing people together with coffee. And boy, it sounds like kind of the perfect convergence of values right there.
It absolutely was. Yeah.
And what at that time, now you guys were roasting coffee at that time, all of your own coffee right from the beginning, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then at what point did you decide this is fun? We like the Airstream. We like you guys, thanks for coming, but we need a brick and mortar.
We actually decided that kind of instantly. So Keenan and Lisanne got the ball rolling with Slate before I joined them. So Keenan had taken like every roasting class he could and done an apprenticeship. And then the first thing that they did was buy a roaster. So that definitely is at the heart of our business and always has been. Mm-hmm. The next thing that they did was found an Airstream. And then we searched for a brick and mortar space. So while we were building out our shop, we ran the Airstream. So the Airstream and our first coffee bar were kind of little ships in the night. The Airstream enabled us to provide a really fun experience to people and a nice introduction to how we wanted to prepare and serve coffee. And then as soon as we were open in Ballard, we had a couple months where the two kind of coexisted, and then we transitioned into just operating our coffee bar.
Yeah, how did customers react to that? Was it a smooth transition?
It was a smooth transition. We kind of served really different markets. The Airstream was a little bit of a destination location, but primarily we served people who lived in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Seattle. And Ballard is a very different neighborhood. We're tucked in a little residential pocket. And so we served a different community that was kind of more family oriented, and became even more of a destination location once we opened Ballard. So it was smooth and easy. We just kind of shifted different communities and kept drawing upon a larger audience that was excited about the style of coffee that we were serving as well.
Did you get the people from your Airstream business traveling to Ballard to experience your coffee even though the Airstream was closed?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I still see people, all of our shops that I've known since we started in the Airstream, which is really fun.
That's really interesting because it's in your business so far, you've made several transitions or steps that a lot of other businesses just make once, like going from a mobile unit to a brick and mortar. And there's probably people hearing this that are doing farmers markets, that are considering opening their brick and mortar space. What were some of the challenges that you faced transitioning from your Airstream to the brick and mortar?
I think this is unique to Slate, and I don't know that would apply to everyone, but it might be helpful guidance. We had to think about our workflow and the experience of our guests in a completely different way. We went from a place where there's no seating, everyone stood and perhaps took shelter with us or grabbed coffee for takeaway, to our Ballard bar, which is just a completely different environment. It's tiny, like the Airstream. It's 350 square feet. And the Ballard bar is set up kind of like a cocktail bar. There's just bar style seating, where you can sit with the barista or the brewer making coffee. There's no overhead menu, and most people at that location sit and have a more leisurely coffee experience. And many people come to the Ballard shop to do our tasting flight. So to try a variety of coffees and kind of focus on comparing varieties and processing methods, preparation methods. And most people have kind of a more exploratory, intense experience there. And so like the way in which people were enjoying their coffee and ordering coffee really, really shifted. And I think our mindset and like what we needed to consider and approach really changed in going from mobile coffee to a brick and mortar. I think that was probably the biggest change in between the two. I had experience with working in a brick and mortar setting, so understanding all the operational components of that felt easy and familiar in many ways, whereas actually the mobile coffee is really, really challenging. I think in some ways anybody who works in mobile first and then goes to brick and mortar is going to be like totally relieved, right? There are certain things in brick and mortar that you don't have to consider in mobile. Like I know with a brick and mortar coffee shop, I know where my electricity comes from and that my espresso machine will always be on. And I don't have to think about what to do with wastewater. It's just going to go down the drain, and into a sewer. Where there are considerations with mobile that are really challenging and that you kind of take it for granted in any other situation.
So it sounds like you also carried over this idea of a communal feel, though, at the same time that what values are informing that consistency between the way that you want people to experience coffee. And I guess in general, what is Slate's goal? What are your values that you're hoping to, leave with people when they experience your coffee in your shops?
Yeah, absolutely. My goal is that people really feel taken care of, and that they've had a chance to enjoy a delicious cup of coffee, but hopefully if they want to really connect with another person. I think, there is so much to learn about coffee and enjoy about our experiences, and you can go really deep with the knowledge that you gain or explore about where coffee comes from and who produced it, right? But if we're going to give somebody the opportunity to learn something about our coffee, first we have to be able to connect with someone just as an individual, as a person. And my goal is that people just have a really good time and they can either have fun with their barista and the people around them drinking coffee, if that's the type of experience they want, or they can totally geek out as well, and that both experiences are great. But to me, our hospitality and having a really sincere, genuine interaction with another person is what should facilitate that development or growth of knowledge about coffee at the end of the day.
My first experience with Slate was in 2013 when you all were competing at America's Best Coffee House competition.
Yes.
No longer
so
active. But you won. You won the West Coast Regional. And you guys, you, Nick, and Brandon, Paul Weaver,
yes.
just one of the most fun teams to experience and watch. And hearing what you have done with your Airstream and the goals you have for your Ballard store, it just makes total sense that that's what we would experience even when you're just making coffee in a convention center.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that that was a super fun competition, and I do think it provided an opportunity for us to kind of showcase what we actually do in our shops. Coffee's special can be really important, and as coffee professionals, we get super excited about all the nitty-gritty details that make a coffee distinct. But at the end of the day, like, it's a cup of coffee, and it should be fun for people too, right?
Absolutely. Now, you're recent in competition. You guys are out there in the community, taking part in many events, and recently, as we mentioned in the beginning of the show, you placed second at the Brewers Cup. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about, from what we've heard of your establishment, how did that come through in your competition routine? There was some elements of bringing people together and the story of the Yemeni coffee that you were using. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for the average kind of coffee drinker or maybe guest that comes into our shop, I think the most important thing to learn about, or maybe the most compelling, is about the people that produced it, right? Like, the average person does not necessarily want to hear about agitation or water temperature, right? Like, that's not the exciting thing or tidbit to discover about coffee.
What?
But for us, it is.
Yeah.
And all of those things are really valuable and still fascinating. But I think, to me, the more intriguing aspect about coffee, and the thing that keeps me engaged and passionate, has always been the people. And so that's what I wanted to focus on in my Brewers Cup routine. And for me, in Brewers Cup, on a personal level, like, that was really choosing a coffee from Yemen really represented something that was kind of coming full circle for me in my coffee experience. And the story I told and the coffee that I talked about like, just truly represented everything that I love about coffee. So the first coffee that I ever fell in love with was a coffee from Yemen that we served at Pete's Coffee and Tea. And it tasted like blueberry and chocolate. Sometimes it tasted like ripe banana. It was just delicious. And it was the first coffee for me where I had that epiphany that coffee could taste like something that wasn't coffee, and that coffee was special depending upon where it came from and how it was processed. So to find this really exceptional coffee from Yemen years later and to be able to celebrate it was really rewarding. My brother Keenan and I went to taste some coffee with Atlas importers here in Seattle in 2016. And the Atlas folks knew that I was competing, so I asked them to hold a cupping with some of their best coffees that they were most excited about. And there were several coffees, including some geishas, on the table, and they were all wonderful. But the thing that stood out was this coffee from Yemen. I think every coffee had, 5 cups for us to sample from. And then the coffee from Yemen had 2. Every other coffee had a tray that was overflowing with roasted coffee for us to be able to check the whole bean. And the coffee from Yemen had like 5 little seeds. And it was insanely good. It tasted like ripe strawberry. It was floral. It had beautiful acidity. It was just delicious. So we immediately asked to buy it. And Craig, who owns Atlas, told us that we couldn't, which was really surprising to hear. And he invited me back the next week, though, and he said, "Hey, the person that helped to produce this coffee is going to be here, and if you want to talk with them about purchasing, you should come back." So I did, and I met this man named Mokhtar Al-Kanshali, and he spoke for an hour and presented this work that he had been doing in Yemen. He had really kind of quickly become passionate about specialty coffee after discovering a love for high quality coffee at Blue Bottle. He is Yemeni American, and he just kind of grabbed the bull by the horns and like ran with it and ran all the way back to Yemen to find good coffee, because he realized that there was a lot of coffee being produced in Yemen, that it was an origin of historical importance, and that there wasn't really much coffee from Yemen being served in the U.S. So we went back and did a lot of work with producers there to help elevate quality by improving like harvesting methods and processing methods. But during that time, civil war broke out, and being able to actually get coffee samples to the U.S. and then finish production and actually export the coffee became exceptionally challenging. But he is dedicated, and he is a visionary, and remained completely steadfast in his commitment to helping these farmers and getting coffee out. And he's been really successful. So I went ahead and I took my Brewers Cup opportunity to talk about all of his good work that he's been doing. And I think it's just a really exceptional story and really amazing coffee. And it was exciting to be able to do. Yeah, at Slate, we work very hard to celebrate that coffee is the seed of a tropical fruit, and that it should taste like that, and that coffee's special, and that people have worked really hard around the globe to produce the coffee that we serve. And it felt really rewarding to be able to tell the story of one such coffee, and to have like some recognition that all of the effort that my team puts into sourcing and roasting coffee and brewing it so that we can best express the work of the coffee producers, that all of that work is being celebrated by our industry, right? It's nice.
Awesome. So you're roasting and sourcing end of the business, as that was the foundation of this business.
Yes.
This whole, like the hospitality of your service experience plus the quality of the sourcing and roasting all in this one routine. And obviously the judges loved it as well. So highly recommend that people, I think you can still go onto live stream and find some recordings of
I think you can.
Yeah, it's under the...
Yeah, it's near the beginning of, I think, the first link that you click on.
Is it SCA's or is it still SCAA at live stream?
I think it's U.S. Coffee Champs live stream.
Oh, right.
Perhaps
right.
we could link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, I will hunt this down and we will include it in the show notes. Exactly.
Great.
So it kind of brings me to my next question, which is the roasting and sourcing. Now, I wonder if you could describe sort of the philosophy behind sourcing and roasting at Slate.
Yeah. Although it's not my primary role, I can definitely speak to it. Seattle has a rich coffee tradition, and I think that informs a lot of our philosophy. Seattle has been really, I think, influential in the industry, right, for our espresso culture.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. And for really leading the industry, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I think the pride that we feel in espresso and in kind of the craft of coffee really informs who we are as a community, and that we very much hold on to that. I think people have a lot of pride in knowing about coffee and knowing how they want their coffee to be prepared. And in Seattle, coffee roasting is still a little bit more traditional. Most people are sourcing and roasting coffees that are chocolatey, nutty, earthy, and that are meant to pair with milk, right?
Yeah.
Like there are some really successful businesses who don't offer any brewed coffee. And they don't need to, because espresso is such a strong component of their business that that's all that they need to celebrate. So given that, we knew that there was an opportunity to create some new experiences and to showcase some new ways in which coffee could be featured, and that there was some room in Seattle to have some bright and juicy coffee. So Keenan sources coffee looking really for a nice balance of sweetness and acidity, and some real clarity of flavor. He's looking to taste like fruity notes, floral notes, any sort of unique characteristic that makes that coffee distinct, and to roast in such a way in which we can highlight all the things that make that coffee unique, rather than like masking some of like the natural acids or some of the subtlety of flavor with kind of more of a roasty note. Our coffee is delicious as espresso, but I think the best expression of our coffee tends to be pour over. And we typically create a really like modern kind of straightforward menu where coffee is the highlight, and where pairing coffee with another ingredient is kind of maybe comes secondary.
Great. So the coffees are just sort of a refreshing change of pace from maybe the normal nutty chocolate coffees that you would experience in that town. And I mean, I love them all. And I know who you're talking to, at least one of the people you're talking about in Seattle that does only espresso, and the shots are always, I wouldn't call them juicy or bright, very, very dark and umami and earthy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, I mean, to be clear, like there's an important place for all types of coffee, for a variety of roast profiles, for different experiences that we create, for different menus. Our goal in like celebrating single origin coffees and roasting them in kind of a lighter way is not to say this is the only way to source coffee and the only way to serve coffee. It's more that, hey, there's room to celebrate coffee in this way because we've nailed all the other ways in which you can do coffee in this town, right? It's to have a diversity of flavor and experience.
Beautifully put. I love the diversity of experience with coffee in our community. That's one of the things that's the best about getting together at competitions and conferences and going to different coffee bars. And, one of our past guests, Shermel Edwards, the coffeetographer, she was experiencing coffee shops with a kind of a mantra or thing that she says to herself that what is it that this coffee shop wants to give me? And not what do I want to put on the coffee shop? Or in this case, like, what do you want to put on the coffee that you wish it was instead of enjoying it for what it is?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a really important philosophy. I think from my perspective, I think this is happening less and less, but at times it's really tempting as a business owner or working within the industry to just give the people what they want and to go with what is like desirable and successful. And at times we kind of, I think, suffer from a lack of diversity in the menus that we're offering or the environments or experiences we're creating, right? Like, it's super easy to know if you have an espresso driven menu with like lots of offerings for syrups and tons of different milks and like a cold case with some sandwiches and some smoothies that like you are going to have a successful business and make some money. And that's important. But it's also important to maybe take a step back and think more about like, what are all the different things that different coffee shops are trying to offer? What's unique about the coffees that they're roasting and how they're preparing them, rather than as a business owner trying to create something that's just generally like acceptable to your community, or as a coffee drinker trying to just customize a coffee so that it's the same at any business you go into.
Yeah, it would get boring too, I imagine, at some point, if it's not who you are, or if you've never given yourself the opportunity to express who you are as an entrepreneur or operator of a bar and just do the thing that you think is going to be the most successful. I can't speak, obviously, I don't know if anyone can speak for that mentality being better or worse, but it does sound like you're leaving some pleasure from coffee on the table.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think there's pros and cons to any decision you make as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. But I think choosing a creative route, and perhaps taking some risks or doing something a little bit more unconventional definitely is rewarding in the innovation that you can experience or the creativity that you can experience, for sure.
So before we continue on here in our conversation with Chelsey Walker-Watson, I wanted to talk to you today about our sponsor, Prima Coffee. Prima is a specialty coffee equipment supplier based out of Louisville, Kentucky, right here where the podcast is based as well. And from the beginning, they have set out to make the best coffee equipment available to the general public. Their focus is on curating the best equipment for every need, from grinders to espresso machines to under-counter fridges. It's pretty much anything you can think of. Lots of stuff. Just go to their website. You'll see there's tons of stuff. But they also put a big emphasis on having the expertise in-house to help their customers get the right gear to fit every situation. And I highly recommend these guys and all that they do. Now, when you visit their website right now, they're running a special, a promo for Keys to the Shop only. You can go and use the promo code KEYS10. That's KEYS 10. The number 10. And what that will do is give you $10 off any purchase over $75. Some restrictions apply. So the website, prima-coffee.com. Go on there, make your purchases, go to the checkout, and use the promo code KEYS10 to get that discount for Keys to the Shop listeners only. Thank you so much, Prima, for your generosity and for supporting Keys to the Shop. So now let's get back to our conversation with Chelsey Walker-Watson of Slate Coffee Roasters. So you all have been established as a business, and you've got your Ballard location. Yes. And this is we're going back a little bit now to the operational side of things. And you got your values rocking in the shops. You know, you're making great coffee, you're sourcing and roasting great coffee. And then the opportunity comes for you to do what I think is fair to say a pretty sudden and ambitious expansion, taking over an existing business. In fact, 3 stores in 2015. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that happened and some of the details of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. We were contemplating expanding for quite some time. As I stated, the Ballard shop is teeny, like it's physically small. I think it technically sits like 14 people. And in the summers, we would have like 20 people out on our sidewalk, sitting down, drinking coffee or waiting. And we reached a point where during our rushes, we would lose guests because we physically could not fit enough people into our space. And of course, people have needs, and have a sense of urgency to get a cup of coffee. So we knew ultimately that we would need to expand to be able to serve more people, and create coffee experiences for more people. While we were contemplating this, someone reached out to us that owned 2 specialty coffee shops in Seattle, a company called Trabant. And their owner had moved to New York, and she had remarried, kind of settled down, had some new business aspirations, and her home was definitely on the East Coast. And the challenges of running a business across the states were becoming real for her, and she was kind of ready to have a fresh start. And it kind of fit perfectly for us. They had 2 locations in great neighborhoods in the University District and Pioneer Square. And it was a unique opportunity and also needed to be pretty fast because of her transition. We needed to open, to take over both shops if we wanted to do it. We didn't have the option of just doing one. As a business owner, there are a lot of details that one may not think about as a guest, but things like leases and lease terms.
Sure.
And for us, in taking over this business, we had to sign leases, and we were obligated to keep the businesses open and functioning. So that meant that we had to do some quick transitions and be able to serve coffee ASAP. What that looked like to the public or the community was just that we suddenly opened shops. For us, it looked like something that we contemplated for a while and then just needed to quickly execute once we made the decision to do so. And it's been really great. I think that there are so many ways in which people can experience a delicious cup of coffee, and so many ways in which people have different needs and can come to feel taken care of. And just because we started out in a tiny environment where people were nerding out and doing tasting flights and whatnot didn't mean that that was the only way in which we wanted to experience coffee. So opening the new shops gave us some exciting opportunities to present coffee in new ways, right? And to engage with people in different methods.
Could you describe some of those new ways and methods?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the university shop, as the neighborhood name would imply, serves college kids. So it's in a neighborhood of Seattle that has the University of Washington. So we serve a lot of people that are either on the go or that are sitting down and studying. And we serve a lot of younger people that are new to specialty coffee and have kind of more of a traditional idea of what coffee should be, right? So at that shop, we have primarily takeaway service. So it's a little more traditional, like people stand in line in order instead of being sat by their server. We do our largest size at our Ballard shop is 8 ounces. Our biggest size, which still seems probably really small to many coffee drinkers, but we upgraded to a 12 ounce at our university location, and we serve a couple blends that are more traditional and that do evoke that familiar, like chocolatey, nutty, classic coffee flavor that I spoke to earlier. We also have a seasonal menu there with rotating signature beverages to pair whatever single origin coffees we've sourced with unique ingredients, and it's super fun. So we get to be creative and serve people that are on the move, and that's super different than what we're able to do at our Ballard shop.
How was the reaction from the people who had been going to Trabant for the years that it was open when the transition happened? Was it all seamless? Was there some challenges with customer retention?
There were some challenges. And then there were some people that were super excited. And I think that that's true of any time you open a new business or like take over an existing spot, right? If someone frequents a business and loves it, they're going to be sad when that business isn't there anymore. It was challenging at first in that sometimes people assumed that like we took over a space and that wasn't with the partnership and support necessarily of the previous business owner. Like people that really loved Trabant were so sad to see it go that they didn't necessarily assume or understand that it was also like supportive of the people that started Trabant, right?
Right.
And Trabant also is really, really different, just as an environment, and then with what they served. Trabant definitely had more of like kind of the old school like Seattle coffee shop feel. Like it was dark and like cozy. And Slate's aesthetic is a little bit like more clean and modern and airy, right? So it as this environment just felt really different. Trabant, they sourced great coffee and did a really nice job of preparing it, but they presented a more kind of classic menu than what we did. So when Slate came in, I think that was hard for people, and that they perhaps had to adjust to having less customized drinks. So kind of a different philosophy. Also, Trabant originally started out not even as a coffee shop, but as a chai company.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They celebrated, and Trabant through their evolution started out with chai and then added specialty coffee. And I think they were one of the first multi-roasters in Seattle.
It was called Trabant Chai Lounge, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so we are a specialty coffee company. And we celebrate coffee, and tea is really special, but that's not the product that we necessarily focus on. So for people that were real chai enthusiasts, that was hard as well for us to come in and not have the same focus on that product.
Right. Do you have chai?
We have chai now, but we have it on nitro. We have kegged chai.
Interesting.
Yeah. But we have at the University District, we do what's called our sweet tea and milk. So we source a different seasonal tea and create a milky drink that has some different sort of house-made simple syrup or seasonal syrup that rotates.
Nice. So you're now operating. You're operating 3 stores now: the 2 Trabants and the Ballard location, right?
Actually, 4. We've partnered with Chrome Industries. They make custom messenger bags and menswear, and are based currently in Portland. They're wonderful, and we've had great respect for them for a long time. And they approached us about opening a coffee bar in their downtown Seattle retail location. So we did that in May of 2016 and just celebrated our 1-year anniversary with Chrome as well.
Nice.
That shop, though, it's great. It's teeny tiny. It's like just a little baby coffee bar inside of their retail shop. So that experience is pretty unique as well.
Well,
we have 4 shops total.
You can't escape the small coffee bars, can you?
No, we can't. We just love them.
So all of this, we've talked about serving the people who come in, bringing people together to serve coffee. One of the things we have not yet talked about, and I'd be super interested to see how you guys go about this, is bringing people together as staff to serve those people, and how you go about finding people to represent your values to the public.
Yeah. I think my approach is, well, at least it's unique to me. Typically, as I've worked in coffee, I search for new baristas, giving it the good old Craigslist try. And putting up signs in the window that we were, now hiring, which I think is pretty typical. But my approach has been really different at Slate. Almost every single person that we've ever hired has been an employee referral, but most importantly, has been someone that's first been a guest at Slate. And that's totally changed my perspective. I think the way in which we seek to serve coffee, to brew coffee, and the experiences that we want to create are fairly unique. And to me, it's really important that somebody understands how we want people to feel and what we want to present to people, and the many ways in which people can enjoy coffee, and perhaps for people to witness some of the inherent challenges of that, right? And so I've built my team just by looking for people that really love Slate and love the coffee that we serve, and they want to hang out at Slate not just because they want a job, but they want to hang out at Slate because they would be anyway, because they love our coffee and like interacting with us. And by doing that, by hiring people that drink Slate before they ever think about having a job with us, I've been able to bring people onto my team that already have kind of a deep understanding of our culture, and most importantly, have a unique appreciation and empathy for the guests that we serve because they've already been a guest themselves. And to me, this has been really successful, and it made the process of transitioning someone on to kind of our team really seamless and really easy and supportive.
Well, they have that inner motivation because now it's not just a job, it's this precious thing that they already put a lot of value in beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. And frankly, now that I hire that way, it seems like crazy to me that I ever hired any other way. And I get that there's the need running a business for people just to ensure that you're appropriately staffed and to keep business operations running smoothly. But being able to invite people to join our team that have a unique and real kind of deep appreciation for who we are and what we do is just totally invaluable. And I think one of the most important things that I've done in leading Slate.
Well, as a leader in this company, you are, responsible for also caring for the people that you bring on who want to serve, and you're serving them as a leader. What are some values that you hold, that you operate under as a leader, that help you be successful?
I think that I very much respect all of the people that are on our team and their needs and their opinions and their motivations. So I work really hard to have empathy for the people that work with us. and to understand like their perspective and what each individual person needs. And I think I do that just in terms of the relationships that I've built with people. You know, as you can tell from how I hire, I know most of the people that are on my team before they're my employee. I know them as a person. So I really aim to know like where people are at in life and how making coffee for Slate helps to support their goals and their dreams, right? The first year that we were open at Ballard and in the Airstream, I was the primary barista every day. So I know what it's like. I know what it's like to make espresso and pour over at Slate, and I know what it's like to handle the challenges of our menu, our environment, and I know what the rewards are like for like blowing people's minds and giving them the best cup of coffee that they've ever had, and I know what it's like to take people through a journey of experiencing many different coffee and maybe giving them an opportunity to learn something new about coffee. And I think that simply because I've been able to work in many different roles at Slate and actively brew coffee, that perspective has been really valuable in leading people. Communication is really important to me as well. I think that honesty and respect are, of course, critical. I know every leader absolutely agrees with that. But I think that that's something that I value and have really kind of strived to provide in terms of being like direct and honest with people and facilitating ongoing communication so I can like support people. I view my role as a leader as being there to understand people's needs and make sure that they're taken care of, and to make sure that I'm aligning the needs of the people that work for us with the needs of the business. And through proper hiring and training, I think that that's been fairly easy to do.
Is that just something that you kind of walk into the store and look at to take the temperature of the room, so to speak, and know that you've been successful, or maybe you have more work to do? Like, how do you know that it's going well?
Yeah. I think just to take the temperature of the room, but also just through talking with people. And with my leadership team. I have a great leadership team, and I rely on them a lot to help keep me informed, but also just to provide their opinion and their perspective as well. I think you can tell from drinking coffee, watching our guests, watching our staff, but just trying to have an ongoing dialogue with people, I think is really critical. And I think also as a leader, like asking hard questions and being willing to be vulnerable and to create a safe space for people to be honest and provide constructive feedback is critical as well. I think sometimes for leaders, it's easy to want to put the business first, but it's easy or tempting as leaders sometimes to have a little bit of ego be involved and to want your motivations and your needs and the needs of the business kind of to come first. And sometimes you have to be a little bit raw and be willing to hear hard stuff from your guests and from your employees about what could be better, or maybe what challenges or struggles people are experiencing and what you can do better as a leader. And my goal in leading the team at Slate is that I will continue to grow and develop as a leader. And I can only do that if people are willing to give me honest feedback and help highlight the ways in which I can improve as well.
Well, it's a very genuine way of going about it, very transparent, in fact, as a leader. And people don't want to be led by somebody who they perceive to be above them in a like holier than thou, like I'm
of course
above mistakes, or I cover up my mistakes, and we're all learning coffee and life and work together.
Of course. Yeah, I try to be really honest about what I feel strong at. And to be honest about where I need additional support and where I can grow. And I think that sets everyone on our team up to be a lot happier and helps us all to be to evolve and grow stronger as a group.
So what's next for Slate? What is on the horizon for you all?
That's a great question. I think given our track record, it's inevitable that we'll continue to grow. Although there's no active plans or anything I can share yet. I think that we have ambitiously grown in the last few years, and we're to a place where, for me, I'm just trying to kind of pause and assess and examine our existing procedures and systems and practices and just see how we can refine and improve everything that we do and just be better, you know? I think that when we first started, at times I had kind of a romantic notion, and I think a lot of new business owners or maybe baristas have this idea that, like, we're going to, you know, come and serve coffee and create this totally unique thing, and it's going to be great, and we're going to source the best coffee that the world has ever seen, you know? And then I think everyone who loves coffee sometimes has this idea that that small, little, genuine, like mom and pop businesses can do amazing things because of their values, right? Like, for example, I think sometimes there's this idea that smaller businesses have more direct relationships with farmers. I hear that a lot. But actually, there's a lot of ways in which we are able to improve and be better, like with time and with growth. Like, we're able to source better coffee the longer we're in business, like a better quality coffee. We're able to have greater involvement and to build upon relationships with farmers and have richer relationships with producers the longer that we are in business. And some of the ways in which we are able to elevate our quality and fulfill our values, I'm surprised in which those ways are strengthened as we gain longevity. And like that, like those are the things that I'm excited about exploring.
So I have to ask you, just for people in our community at Keys to the Shop that are operators, owners, what final piece of advice would you pass along to somebody who is an owner and wants to just stay on the straight and narrow and do the best job that they can? What has been the most enduring value for you as an owner that you would want everyone to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I have a few pieces of advice, actually. I would say that if you are going to start your own business in coffee, or frankly in a variety of industries, I think that most people conceptually know that it will take hard work or be challenging. And I would say, like, really sit with that idea. I think starting your own business involves more time, more resources, more challenges than one may kind of ever be able to anticipate. And that it's going to take probably more loyalty, commitment, and effort than one would ever think. People ask me if starting Slate was as hard as I thought it would be, and I thought it would be really hard, and it absolutely is. I don't have children, but I imagine it's kind of like when people try to think about what it's like to be a parent, and that being a parent's probably harder than you would ever think it was.
I'll
and
vouch
probably
for
more
that.
rewarding.
Yeah.
I know you have kids, so you can attest to that. I think it's a similar process. I also hear people explore the idea of starting a coffee shop all the time. People will come and ask me for advice, and they'll tell me they want to start a coffee shop because it's fun or relaxing, or that or they're like gonna be rich. So people don't actually say that, but they'll express an attitude and that, like, it's a really easy way to, like, make a quick buck. And I think that if you're gonna start it, it's like coffee shops feel relaxing and inviting and warm because people work really hard to create that feeling. And that if you are going to own and operate a coffee shop or a retail space, that's going to take a lot of effort to cultivate that environment and a lot of attention and a lot of action. And that if you are entertaining the idea of going into that business, that you have to be willing to work really hard on a personal level to deliver that for a long amount of time. And then I would also say, like, just be thorough and, like, do things right, and think about, if your coffee shop is successful, like, what do you want it to be, 5-10 years from now? And what are the things that you need to do at the very beginning to prepare for it to be successful and strong and stable?
Excellent advice. Thanks so much. And I really enjoyed hearing the stories behind your company, and I really am appreciative of you joining us today. What can people do to reach out? Where can they find more about Slate?
Great question. I think slatecoffee.com is the best place to find out about what we're up to and what coffees we are roasting currently. On social, we are probably the most active on Instagram, so @SlateCoffee is a great place to find us and reach out to us as well.
Well, thanks again, Chelsey, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you and to share a bit about what we're doing at Slate.
Well, there you go. I know that I learned a lot, and thank you so much, Chelsey, for taking the time and sharing all that you've learned from this process of 4 years more of running Slate Coffee Roasters. Just like I said in the beginning, I left this interview just really encouraged because all that I know about Slate is what I've experienced in limited amounts. I don't live in the Northwest, so I don't get to interact with their brand or their coffee or their people. But from what I know of them in my limited experience, just hearing the heart that is behind all of the things that you experience in their service when you do, it's just really nice to know that this is not just something that they do because it makes financial sense or it works for their business. It's something they literally believe in and pursue. Really great work being done by Slate. And the quote that really stands out from her routine is something that I think applies here, where she says that the shortest distance between two people is a cup of coffee. And it seems that for Slate, the whole point here is to bring people together through coffee, for coffee, and enhance community and provide a unique and refreshing take on hospitality. And I just know that they're going to continue to be successful. And I hope that you got a lot out of this conversation as well. As usual, the show notes are available on the website at keystotheshop.com, where you can find out more about this show and listen to all the other past episodes as well. And I highly encourage you to subscribe to Keys to the Shop on iTunes and leave a review or a rating. It helps the visibility of the show, and it's much appreciated. So that's it for me. That's it for today. Thank you so much for spending time here on this 5th edition of Founder Friday, learning all about Slate Coffee Roasters. So I hope that you too were encouraged, as I was, by the story of Slate Coffee. So go out there this week and bring your community together through coffee. And I hope that this episode has been helpful to you and that all of our shows have given you keys to the shop.